Welcome to Consulting Talk Live. My name is Russell Pearson, and this show is the second time I've done this today because it just went live automatically before. Hopefully, this is a slightly better version of the start. So, this show is all about helping you with your consulting business, and we take your questions. So, put your questions in at consultingquestions.com. We will read them out on the show and then we will answer them. And I say we because I'm talking the royal we. At the end of the day, it's going to be me. And who am I? Russell Pearson. The last 30 years have been helping all sorts of different businesses build and grow their business and ideally get more clients. That's really a focus of a lot of the work that I do. And for the last 15 years in particular, I've been focusing in on consulting businesses. So I'm going to quickly ask the person in the next room whether they can hear me. Can you hear me? Yes, they can hear me, which is fantastic, which means that hopefully you can hear me. And let's get on with the show. So, the first question that's coming in today, let's bring that one here. It comes to us from Anthony, and he asks, we all know we should never charge by the hour, but being able to answer how much do you charge an hour question can be challenging when you get pushed on the cost. 100%. It can be. And there are a number of reasons why you can find yourself getting into that situation. But let me just step back for a second, literally to here, which is if you are currently charging hourly, you will notice that there is not a lot of leverage from hourly rates. You work an hour, you get paid an hour. And the only really way to increase your income is to put your hourly rate up until you get to a point where people perceive it to be too expensive, all right, by the hour. Now, the interesting thing as well by the hour is if you're a consultant who is charging by the hour, you are being seen actually as an employee because you're fitting into an employee structure, which is an hourly rate. And so what I like is, Alan Weiss had created a book quite a few years ago called Value-Based Fees. I think this is a really great book for you to start the process of understanding why we want to charge value and why we want to get away from that hourly rate model. So let's assume that we do all know that charging an hourly rate is probably not the best way to be a consultant, an advisor, or a mentor for an organization. We want to actually be in that level of peer conversation rather than contractor level where people are telling us what to do. If we want to be in that space, we really need to charge value. And so how do we go about doing that? Well, number one, if we find ourselves getting into a situation where people are asking what our hourly rates are, that means that we've positioned ourselves to be either a service or a thing that most people perceive as being time based. So if we're positioning ourselves as an advisor, most people don't see advice as being an hourly rate. They see it as an instance of activity. And so understanding that you may have positioned yourself to be asked for that figure. But let's say that you were selling a service and that's part of what you do in your consulting business. And they have asked you that question. Well, what I would respond is we actually don't charge hourly rates. We feel a value based model is more effective for us and for our clients because we don't want to make it so that we get rewarded, as in paid more, by spending longer to get you a result. We're much more focused on outcomes than we are about activity. And so we create a fixed price value model. Now, there are multiple ways of doing value. It doesn't always have to be fixed price, but I like the fixed price monthly retainer as a way of selling value. The other option really is about getting a reward based off outcome. Now, the reward based off outcome, let's say that the focus was increasing the bottom line by $300,000. All right. So we'll say profit in particular. So $300,000 increased profit in a business. You might want to set yourself up to be a value proposition on receiving 10% of that. All right. So the value equation tends to work pretty effectively on a 10% ratio. So if we're going, we'll get you $300,000 in profit, and we would like 10% of whatever we actually get. That's a reward-based system, and most people are very happy for that. There are people who will quibble that are used to actually buying services and used to having employees and not used to actually having people being mentors and advisors for them. But the challenge I find with the reward-based system is actually getting into the book, getting into the business to understand how much they are making And then the challenge that comes with that is that the only real way to do it effectively is to have control of the incoming cash. So if you do want to do a reward based system, then my suggestion is that you receive the cash and then you pass it to the client. That's a really effective way of doing a value based reward system. On the flip side, which is the fixed price, most people like that because they get to know this is how much it's going to cost. When you do a mixed hybrid version of it, it's going to cost this, but there might be extras. That's when the trouble comes in. So, what I like about the value model, let's say it's a $5,000 retainer or a $10,000 a month retainer, we're working to get an outcome. Now, that outcome has a quantifiable value to it. If it doesn't, then your role is to actually identify that quantifiable value. And you can do that even if you're not doing business improvements. So I use the example of the business profit increase, but you can do this in all other areas. And in fact, if you are selling value, you really need to be able to quantify the value that you're creating for people. And so in a recent conversation, I was talking to someone who does strategic work for students in high school, and she's normally working with private school parents in enabling those students to get the result. The challenge for her was, well, it's not a quantifiable value piece. Well, there are multiple ways that we can make it quantifiable if we can identify what is the specific outcome that they want. So, for instance, let's say they wanted to get university placement, right? University placement for what? Is it to get a specific career? Is it to get a type of income? And if they say it's a specific type of career, then you can start to quantify the income on that career versus what they would expect to get if they didn't do this strategic work with them. So that's one way. Another way can be a specific ATAR or an academic result. What would that academic result give them? So we go, right, here's the outcome we want. Then for what purpose? For what purpose is where you find the quantifiable value. So we want to increase sales for the purpose of getting more profit in the business. That's an example on the other side. So I usually use the response of we have a fixed price model that enables you to know exactly how much you're spending. Some months we will actually spend a lot more time because we actually have to focus more deeply on your work. Sometimes it'll be a little less, but at the end of the day, it's going to balance out. You'll know how much you're paying, and you will be able to judge the continuation of this retainer on the results. And so really that puts the onus on you as a consultant to be focused on results. And one of those things that we look at inside the guild and the forge is outcome expertise. So it's all very nice for people to have expertise in their business. And it's very nice to, have academic credibility behind you, masters, doctorates, and all the rest of it. But if you can't get people outcomes, then you're not going to be in the value game for very long. And so your ability to get people outcomes for them to go, yes, I achieved a specific thing, which means you need to quantify what that specific thing is. That really is not only the game for those who want to sell value, but it's the game for us long term. Recently, let me just quickly have a look over here. I want to see if I can see any questions. Oh, yeah, great. Yeah, we've got Lindsay commenting there, which is fantastic. But the long-term game for all of us in the consulting space is that we have to become good at outcome expertise, because if we don't, well, we've got artificial intelligence that is actually taking the answers and giving them to our clients. And it's not about answers, and it's not about knowledge economy anymore. It's not even about wisdom economy. There was a time when it was all about this person held all the answers. And then the Googleization of information came along, and then suddenly that goes away. And so then it's not about knowledge itself, it's about context. And so can you give context to the information to enable someone to do something with it? And that was what I would call the wisdom economy. And that ran for probably 15 years, going from now back in time. But now we've got artificial intelligence, which a lot of people are saying is mediocre. But the reality is I'm starting to get it to a point by pushing and mentoring my own AI to a point where it is providing high quality advice that is contextually accurate. And that comes, it's good input in, good input out. That's part of how you actually run these artificial intelligences. But it won't be very long until there is a Googleization of AI. And however you look at AI, as there's all the different versions of what AI is. There's learning machines, and there's a generative AI, which is a predictive piece. There's lots of different versions. Some people believe artificial intelligence will just be built into tools, but I do believe that there'll be a Googleization of that, and there'll be one specific tool that people will use for generally everything. They'll ask it for wealth advice. They'll ask it for property investing advice. They'll ask it for what should they be doing on their career, so career advice, anything that they actually want advice on. So how will I grow my business will become a thing where they will instantly get the answers. Now, two things are going to happen in that scenario. Number one is there's going to be a generational gap. So the people who are used to speaking to advisors to get that information, really just to feel a little bit more confident about themselves, are going to continue to do that. And that'll continue on for 5-10 years, whatever it might be, as long as they're continuing to work within their career. But an emerging generation are just going to jump straight into the technology, and they're just going to start using it as is. And so that next generation is going to come, and they're not going to need to speak to a human to get answers. So that means that you as a consultant really need to start focusing on getting outcomes for people, getting results for people, and actually practicing your expertise to become outcome expertise to ensure that you're able to get those results consistently, and confidently, so that you can say to somebody, I'm doing a value-based pricing on this because the outcome we're looking for is, let's say, $200,000 in whatever space it is. I confidently can charge you $20,000 in that because I know I will get you the outcome. And it's an interesting one. If you ask someone how much they would pay for $100, some people will say, well, I would pay $20 for $100, or I'd pay $50 for $100. Some people will pay $90 for $100. And so if you could get someone $200,000, they may spend, $180,000 to get it. But when it comes to big numbers, most people are a little bit shy. They're a little bit skittish because they're not 100% sure that you will get them the answer, no matter how confident you are. So 1/10 it tends to be a good model that you can use. 1/20th, if you're not that confident. I think the key really is to get good at actually generating those results. So how do you get good at generating those results is another part of the question. And I could leave it until another time, but if you're interested in hearing that, put it in the comments. Like, if you want to know how you can actually get good at these expertise or outcome expertise, what are the steps to get good at creating results? Well, actually, I'm just going to answer the question. So you need opportunities to practice. Yeah. And so what is practice? Practice is actually taking the specific knowledge that you have and a specific outcome that you want, and practicing achieving that, and then reviewing the step if you didn't achieve it, and identifying what can be fixed, and then practicing again. So practice is not just repeating the same thing over and over again. It's repeating a thing with review. And so if you can get what I call client flow, which is clients coming to you on a consistent basis, then you will have this opportunity to practice and get good. Now, where does it go wrong? It goes wrong when people are generalists. In other words, they are not looking after specific problems for people. They'll fix any problem. Who is your ideal client? Anyone with a heartbeat. Who is your ideal client? Anyone who's breathing. I can help people with a lot of different things. So if you're helping people with like a lot of different things, and maybe you're working on 10 completely different projects at a time, you're not practicing on the same thing over and over again, which means you're not reviewing the same thing over and over again, and you're not finding a way to get better. So my suggestion is, you don't have to niche, but ideally you need to restrict your focus, especially around your practice, to a handful of things. And my niche model, which I'll show you on the board actually, has 4 different aspects. And with those aspects, you really need to have 2 of them. Otherwise, it's not a niche. And so I've actually got a question on niching as well. So this kind of answers 2 of them. I might actually bring up the other question, which is from Sam. Let me see if I can find that one. Got this question. Oh, there it is, Sam. Select Sam's one. All right, copy that. I'm going to see if I can put it onto the screen. Copy that. I'll put this other question up here. All right, we'll clip that. Put that in there. That worked, kind of. Bear with me. You'll get this question in just a moment. We'll increase the size of that. It's on the black, so that's good. Just rebut. Okay. So you can't see that. Of course, you can't see that because it is in black. So let's make it white by doing that. And we'll save. There we are. Okay, cool. So Sam asks, I feel I have an offer that I offer a niche service. So a specific service is what she offers. So I don't tend to focus on specific industry. What do you think businesses should have? But do you think businesses should have a targeted niche? Well, I think they do. Like there was a time when I was, not 100% sure about whether you should or you shouldn't. But at this point now, I do believe you should. And so to come up with a niche, it's really of these 4 different areas. So I'll remove Sam's question in just a moment. We can look at it. The key with any niche is specificity, right? And the more specific you are, the better. And so that means that even if you're selling value, we want to have practice, right? So we want you to get really good at what you do. Your ability to practice is how many of the same things can you be practicing on, which gives you a reason to niche. On one side, the reason to niche is because it's a lot easier to actually have communication with a specific audience because you will name them and they'll go, that's me, and they'll identify with the specific thing you're saying. On the other is that you get more instances to practice, right? So it's practice results, which is outcome expertise. So I'm just going to write outcome expertise because it's the reason. Expertise is the reason for today. Expertise. Okay, so niche has to be in two of these 4 specific areas. So one is identity. And what I mean by that is, what do they identify as? To give you an example, I identify as Russell. That is my name, right? And so that would be the center of a bullseye. One step out from there, I am Russell, a business strategist, right? So I'm Russell, the business strategist, identify as a business strategist. From one step out of there, I identify as a consultant. One step out of there, I identify as a business owner. And then maybe further out, I identify as an SME or 100 different other things. And so as you get further away from this bullseye, the actual volume gets turned down on the messages when you're speaking to an audience. So identity, the closer you can have it to the center of the bullseye, the better. More specific, the better. And so there are people out there who go, well, I just work with women, and that's absolutely fine. But that's 4 billion people, so it's not specific. But do you identify as a woman if you're a woman? Yes. Okay. So it can be, as long as they identify as. Yeah. And so we go from there and we say, the other version is method. We can we can niche on method. Now, Sam's question is she has a niche service. So a specific service, a specific method. Yeah. So that is one good example of specificity. But again, you need 2, not just 1. So then a specific problem and 1 specific problem, not 10 specific problems, and then a specific outcome. So in each of these, it's 1 identity, it's 1 method, it's 1 problem, it's 1 outcome. And you need to select at least 2 of them so you can actually create that intersection. So let's say we go with identity. We'll say, so you got women there. Let's go deeper than that. We'll say new mothers, for instance, right? That's there. Specific problem. We've worked with clients with new mothers as the clients before, and the specific problem was breastfeeding. Right, that was a specific problem they had. They were unable to breastfeed, and so that becomes a very specific niche. So new mothers who are having problems breastfeeding becomes the niche. And then if you say that out to the audience, They hear it really easy, and they catch on to the message. They go, "That's me," and they dive right in. So once you've got this niche, this is how you actually go about identifying getting more of the same type of clients. But within that, you don't want to have too many outcomes. And ideally, if you can have one, it's going to be even better. You get to practice on one outcome. And for me, really, the first of those outcomes is clients. How do I enable consultants to get more clients? Well, we've mastered that. There's like so many different ways to do it based off your specific business. And so I get to now, because we've got so many different ways, go, what is your preference in running a business? And here's two ways to do it. We'll start with this one and we'll go to this one after that. For other people, that's not going to work from them because it's not the sort of business they want to run. Maybe they don't want to be doing email marketing, for instance. All right, well, we can do it a different way. And here is another way that you can actually get clients. So mastering the art of getting clients becomes our first outcome. Now, we have other outcomes and there are other things that we work on, but they're further along the path. As long as our clients have clients, right, then there's so many other things that we can build on. And that's about growing a business. That's about transforming it into the business that gives you either the lifestyle you want or to be able to exit in the way that you want. But this becomes part of the key. So if you've got the niche sorted, it becomes so much easier to actually sell on value because you are clear about the outcomes that you're delivering for people. You're clear about the specific problems and challenges that they're having. And in fact, as soon as you start using the language of the audience, the language of the person in front of you, because you're niched, because you know them so well, they have massive confidence that you know them as well and that you've seen this many times before, which gives them far more confidence and even social proof that you can achieve it again. Yeah. And so that's part of that value proposition. So when you're selling value, part of the challenge when it's, if it's ever going to come up about, what are your prices, it's usually because they're perceiving you as a service. Now, that could be because you do actually have a service, or it could be because you've positioned yourself as a service. And so one of the things that I suggest for all consultants who are doing any work that has a transformation process in it, we're taking people from here to there. All right. So we've got some change work to do with them, that there should be a strategic piece at the very start of the engagement. And what I like about a strategic piece is it's so much easier to not be time-based, to not be specifically sold on how much time you're spending with people, because people don't want to. So let's say how I would do a strategic piece is I would run a workshop. And so I'm sitting there running a workshop with a client. They're not wanting me to spend 10 hours to do their strategy. They're wanting me to spend 2 to 3 hours. And because they're there with me. And one of the other ways that I see people really seeing the value, but identifying the value is where they actually see you doing the work. They're involved in it. And in fact, a lot of the leverage you can get as a consultant is work with the client or have them do some of the work. Even so, having a client do a self-diagnostic in different areas of the business rather than you doing the diagnostic itself can be more valuable for the client because there is now a new awareness that they had that they didn't have before. Now, actually, just while I'm on that topic, I want to separate the idea of diagnostic from survey. Right? We're not just surveying our clients so we can retrieve information. Self-diagnostic is much more about helping them identify the gaps so they can identify the problem, so they can identify the specific outcome they're looking to get. The difference in my world is when I see like a mortgage broker in particular, where they've taken really what was a high touch business model in. They would meet with a client, they would speak to that client, and they would talk them through the process of that client, which used to be such a fantastic role to play. They've now moved to this high-tech version of the same thing where they won't speak to somebody until they've already filled out like a 4-page questionnaire and given all the financials and all these details. They won't even speak to them before that. They're now losing the sort of business, and that business model in particular is going to be one of the ones that is going to become extinct when artificial intelligence really takes over. And we're at a point now where not only is it accelerated, but it's already taking the role of many people's businesses. Those people's businesses who are not in the business of becoming an advisor and mentor to the individuals that they're working with. So if you're just delivering a service and you're a consultant, I wouldn't be surprised if you're being put into a contractor role. People are seeing you as a service delivery or employee, a person they're engaging or employing to do a specific outcome. In that model, you're being told what to do. If you are truly an advisor, if you are truly a mentor for these businesses, which is what I suggest in the select consulting model, if you want to be able to select the clients that you work with, then you need to be positioning yourself at mentor or better, right? And the only way to do that is to have done the practice, be able to get outcomes with your expertise rather than just knowing some stuff that you read once in a book. So, for Sam's question, yes, I suggest we go niche. It is always going to be more effective to have a niche model than a non-niche model. This is how you do it. You need at least two of these four options. And then for Anthony's question, how do you go about answering that question? Well, as I said at the start, the way to answer it is to really describe the reason why you've decided to do value-based fees, the reason why you do fixed price, and how beneficial that is for a client, because it's in understanding the value that they're going to get that they're actually going to more often say yes to you than not. Only time that it happens differently is if the client already can do what you can do for them, right? So if they're getting you to do something because they're time poor and they want you to do it, then really you're not selling value, you're selling time. And so avoid selling time. Yeah. I don't work with clients who can already do what you can do. Yeah, that's part of the challenge is you don't have to work with everybody. You get to select who you work with. And again, the select consulting model is one way you can really audition those clients so that you're not having those conversations and you're never talking about time as part of your price. My name's Russell Pearson. This is Consulting Talk Live. I'd love you to put your question into consultingquestions.com. There's a link below us. If you've got any questions that you'd like to add, you can add them in the chat. If you've got any questions about the question that was asked today or about the answers that I gave, add that to the chat as well. Until next time, stay passionate, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.